You can win. But politicians and other paid officials and leaders will say, you're going to lose. Even your friends will count you out. But you can win. I cut my teeth on open records requests fighting to save my community park from being paved over for an emergency center the size of 20 houses on the top and the bottom, about the size of a Costco. I also stopped the lease operator of a very famous dry dock ship, the Queen Mary in Long Beach, from receiving a public subsidy through bogus rent credits. Public records allow you, the average person, to know whether or not your elected officials are telling you the truth about the way they conduct your business and spend your tax dollars. In the case of attempting to take the park, the city falsified group meetings and deliberately withheld records. They even tried to withhold a blueprint image of the proposed building, the one you just saw. They produced a bogus environmental impact report and violated the California Environmental Quality Act, called CEQA, to avoid and mislead the public about the viability of the project. As for the operator of the ship, records showed him receiving unearned rent credits on his lease without any receipts to prove he spent the money on council improvements. This is called the gift of public funds. The lawsuit I subsequently have filed helped put an end to that. Elected officials and community leaders will sometimes try to intimidate you for seeking records. Some will call you a troublemaker, or as Hank Waters once called me, a ship disturber. Some will say you're causing a legal situation. They think if you call them names, you'll back down from an opportunity to use the knowledge you've gained from public records. Public records help us dump a free-spending council member named Dennis Carroll. See that dump, Dennis? He spent $5,000 on a green leather couch and 2 chairs, while the council was belly-aching over a multi-million-dollar deficit. He and his colleagues spent taxpayer money like irresponsible parents who in the dead of winter can't afford to heat their home or feed their children and who have no warm clothes and insist instead on going on a Caribbean vacation on their credit card. Sunshine on Mr. Carroll's expenditures and actions made him angry. He didn't like being held accountable or questioned about his practices. My husband helped me win battles too. Having a supportive spouse makes you twice as dangerous. Your interest in getting the truth from elected officials, maybe those you thought you trusted and admired, may call you names and belittle you for your quest for the truth, to advocate for what's right. Generally, the public wakes up and sees right through this kind of nonsense and call politicians out publicly. Letters to the editor are an awesome way to exercise your civic mindedness. Some journalists or newspapers forget that the Sunshine Law empowers them to be a watchdog, not a lapdog for politicians. Mr. Carroll's small newspaper cheerleader, Mr. Beeler, the publisher, forgot his role as the fourth estate. In California and cities and states all across the country, journalists and citizens are empowered, in California, by the Ralph M. Brown Act, referred to as simply as the Brown Act. The preamble to the Brown Act is very powerful, and every state has sunshine laws, but I like the Ralph M. Brown Act because I like the preamble. The people of the state do not yield their sovereignty to the agencies which serve them. The people, in delegating authority, do not give their public servants the right to decide what is good for the people to know and what is good for them not to know. The people insist on remaining informed so they may retain control over the instruments they have created. It's pretty powerful stuff. But records and information not only serve us, it's a process to teach civic mindedness to our children. Asking questions of our elected officials, getting answers, and not the least of which is manners. My daughter actually schooled me on the etiquette of being nice, especially when someone holds an opposing view. In the heat of political battle, like now where the discourse is rather coarse, I often prattle on about the mayor of Long Beach, Mayor Beverly O'Neill, whom I dubbed Queen Bev Pain in the Ass, because she endlessly assailed those who disagreed with her as gadflies and NIMBYs. One night at a council member, she had a speaker arrested because they spoke over their public speaking time. But my daughter's smart. She watched and admired the mayor. She liked her snappy suits. Living with a process and politics-obsessed parent can rub off on your offspring. Case in point, my daughter's classmates had no idea who the mayor was. She wanted them to understand the role of the mayor. So you see, my daughter already had the bug. She wanted to know more. I learned from my daughter that it takes all kinds of people to send a message. The greatest part about being an activist is you don't get to pick your team. You have to learn to be inclusive and collaborate and leverage each person's capacity to create a winning outcome. We see all the time that diversity can bring a band of people together for a common cause and be a mighty force. In the end, the mayor came to the class and I stopped calling her Queen Bev Pain in the Ass out loud. When I moved to Columbia, it was the same thing all over again. Developers tried to get the upper hand, and records show elected officials collaborating behind the scenes and counting in votes to help them win. Records showed the public was paying more than their fair of sales taxes. The strangest case was an attempted land grab by the State Historical Society, apparently supported by the University of Missouri and Stevens College, to take a small business owner's property by eminent domain, while asking the same owner to carry paper on the deal. You see, the Historical Society was broke. What nerve. Kudos goes to Mike Martin, who through Columbia Heartbeat used records to tell the behind-the-scenes story. The publisher of the Tribune could not tell the same story because he was part of the story. Instead, he played watchdog. He played lapdog instead of watchdog. Just because a politician, a developer, or other influential person may have more power, money, or influential friends, it doesn't mean they'll win. Missouri Sunshine laws empower our reporters, editors, and citizens to maximize and leverage transparency in how our government does business. So you see, you can win. We did. One amazing thing about records, if you ever make a public records request, is you suddenly become very distrustful when you see that your council member counts votes in email to help a developer. You see lots of things that you never thought you would ever see. It's not to make you distrustful, but to make you aware that it's your job and role to be inquisitive about what government is doing. We often take things for granted. We listen to what we want to hear on TV, and we should be a little more, I don't know, inquisitive, curious. Is that true? Could that really be the case? So records let you see actually what they're saying and what they're doing, all right? You can find out how much money they spend, like the guy that bought the $5,000 couch and 2 chairs. On his campaign, he campaigned on how he was really thrifty, but he lied. And it's intimidating, and I think from this you learn to be kind of tough. Even the cartoons that they put in the newspaper try to belittle you for asking questions in your entire neighborhood. That's pretty tough stuff. Anyway, thank you.